Flamenco Dance by Harper Elwood. The late afternoon sun painted Seville's Plaza de España in shades of gold and amber as Isabel Moreno hurried through the historic square. Her dance bag bounced against her hip, the worn leather as familiar as the cobblestones beneath her feet. The scent of orange blossoms mingled with the aroma of freshly baked churros, creating the unmistakable perfume of her beloved hometown. As she passed the ornate ceramic benches that lined the plaza, a melody caught her attention. The sound was different from the usual tourist-pleasing tunes. This was something deeper, more authentic. Isabel slowed her pace, drawn to the source of the music. A street musician sat near one of the plaza's fountains, his fingers moving across the guitar strings with practiced precision. He wasn't playing for the crowd. His eyes were closed, lost in the composition. The piece spoke of longing and hope, of sunsets and new dawns. Without meaning to, Isabel found her hand moving in the familiar flourishes of flamenco, her body responding to the music's call. The musician looked up, catching her mid-movement. Their eyes met, and Isabel felt a flutter of embarrassment at being caught in her impromptu dance. But the warmth in his brown eyes held no judgment, only appreciation. She continued on her way to the studio, though the melody followed her through her evening classes. As she demonstrated steps to her students, she found herself thinking about the musician's skilled hands and the emotion he poured into each note. Over the next week, Isabel found herself taking the same route through the plaza, each time pausing a little longer to listen. The musician was always there, playing different pieces but with the same soul-stirring intensity. She learned his patterns. He favored the shadier spots in the afternoon, moved closer to the fountains as evening approached. On the fifth day, as the last notes of his song faded into the evening air, he stood and approached her. "I'm Alejandro," he said, his voice carrying the same warmth as his music. "You're a flamenco dancer." It wasn't a question. Isabel nodded, adjusting the strap of her dance bag. "Isabel, I teach at the studio on Calcierpes. Your hands," he gestured to them, "they speak the language of flamenco. I've watched you respond to the music as you pass." His observation was direct but gentle, free from pretense. They fell into conversation easily, discussing the traditions of flamenco and the way the art form was evolving. Alejandro, she learned, was a composer working on a piece for the upcoming Bienal de Flamenco festival. His street performances were both practice and inspiration, allowing him to see how different passages resonated with passers-by. Their friendship developed naturally over shared afternoons in the plaza. Isabel would arrive early before her evening classes, and they would talk about music, dance, and the way both arts intertwined. Alejandro would sometimes ask her opinion on a piece he was working on, and Isabel found herself sharing the challenges of teaching traditional flamenco to modern students. "Dance with me," Alejandro said one evening, after playing a particularly moving sequence. "Not as a performance, just feel the music." Isabel hesitated only a moment before slipping off her shoes. The stone of the plaza was cool beneath her feet as she began to move, letting Alejandro's guitar guide her. They created something together in that moment, something that transcended both music and dance. As spring bloomed into summer, their artistic collaboration deepened into something more. They spent weekends exploring Seville together, discovering hidden courtyards and tiny tapas bars where local musicians gathered. Alejandro showed her the quiet spots along the Guadalquivir River where he went to compose, and Isabel introduced him to her favorite flamenco caves in Triana. Their romance was as natural as the rhythm of flamenco itself, moments of passionate intensity balanced by quiet companionship. They challenged each other artistically, pushing boundaries while respecting traditions. When Isabel received an invitation to join a prestigious flamenco company for a European tour, Alejandro was the first person she told. They sat by the river, his guitar resting between them. 3 months, she said softly, watching the play of light on the water. Alejandro was quiet for a long moment, his fingers absently stroking the guitar strings. "You have to go," he finally said. "This is what you've worked for." "I know," Isabel replied, "but—" "No buts," he interrupted gently. "Your dance deserves to be seen by the world. Besides," he smiled, picking up his guitar, "I'll be busy finishing my piece for the Bienal. We'll inspire each other from afar." The night before her departure, Alejandro took her to a small courtyard tucked away in the heart of the city. Lanterns hung from the orange trees, casting a warm glow over the space. He played for her, a new composition that spoke of love and distance, of holding on and letting go. During her tour, they stayed connected through short phone calls and long letters. Isabel wrote about the theaters she performed in, the audiences who connected with her dance despite the language barriers. Alejandro shared the progress of his composition, how the experience of missing her had deepened his music. When Isabel returned to Seville, it was the night before Alejandro's performance at the Bienal. She slipped into the theater quietly, her heart beating in time with the familiar rhythms of his guitar. As she watched him perform, she realized that his music had evolved during their separation, just as her dance had. There was a new depth to his composition, a complexity that spoke of growth and change. After the performance, they met in their courtyard. No words were needed as Alejandro began to play and Isabel began to dance, their artistic dialogue picking up as if they had never been apart. In the years that followed, their love grew alongside their art. They married in a simple ceremony in the Alcázar gardens, surrounded by family, friends, and music. Together, they opened a small school, combining their talents to teach a new generation about the heart of flamenco. Their greatest collaboration wasn't their school or their performances, but the life they built together. They faced challenges, touring schedules, creative differences, the demands of running a business, but they faced them as partners, their bond strengthened by shared passion and mutual respect. On warm evenings, they could still be found in the Plaza de España, Alejandro playing while Isabel danced. Tourists would stop to watch, captivated not just by their skill, but by the obvious connection between them, a love story told through music and movement, as timeless as Seville itself. They had found in each other not just romantic love, but artistic companionship, a rare combination that made both their art and their hearts fuller. Their story became part of Seville's legacy, proof that sometimes the most beautiful compositions arise from two hearts beating in perfect harmony.